we're developing our applications, almost every application you develop is going to have some sort of database backend. You're going to store data somewhere because it's no good to tell an application something and then come back later and have forgotten that. That's what databases are great for persisting data coming back and being able to access and process that data later, whether it be a shopping cart or some employee information or whatever. You're going to store stuff in a database. Now the question is, what kind of database is that going to be? Is it going to be a relational database? I mean, that's the workhorse of, for the last several decades, a relational database. But it doesn't have to be a relational database. It could be a document database such as Mongo, and that solves a very specific set of problems where you have unstructured, largely unrelated sets of data that you need to store. Or maybe it's completely the opposite extreme of that, the other extreme where you're dealing with a graph database such as Neo4j, where it's somewhat unstructured, but you have this highly related data where you have things such as a person is working for another person and that person has this project, or you have a friend who is interested in this kind of music and likes this kind of food, or you have a person who has purchased these kinds of products and now you want to see what their friends have purchased and so you can market to them appropriately or what have you. There's different types of databases, whether it be a graph database, document database, relational database, column store database, whatever. And as a Spring developer, we don't want to have to relearn those different APIs for those different kinds of databases. It would be really nice if we could write the persistence layer of our database as consistently as possible, regardless of what kind of database is behind it. And that's where Spring Data comes in. Spring Data is going to enable us to build repositories that largely aren't any different based on whatever the database is. There will be some subtle differences because ultimately, yes, a graph database is vastly different than a document database, which is vastly different than a relational database. So sure, there's going to be a few differences. But for the most part, the programming model is very much the same. If you've written one repository for a relational database, then doing another repository for a document or column store database or what have you is going to be largely the same sort of effort. And so in this session, we're going to look at the basics of Spring Data. We're going to look at how to build repositories that with minimal effort can target any kind of database your application needs.